Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's brand new episode of Breakfast with Boom. I am your host, Mr. Boomstick XL, and we have one heck of a show ready for you today. We have a couple of very, very incredible guests, but we're going to be talking about really some hot off the presses topics. We're going to be talking about, of course, Resident Evil Village. We're going to give a review roundup and give our early impressions of the game. I played about an hour and 30 minutes so far. I'm quite enjoying it. It is very Resident Evil 7. And if you loved Resident 7, I think you're definitely going to dig this. Of course, we're going to be talking about the big rumor that came out of The Verge from Jeff Grubb. Obviously, he was a good friend of the show. He was on a couple of weeks ago on Primetime Gaming. He put out a rumor, or he brought a rumor to light that a lot of people were, we were all thinking it, and it has basically been confirmed that the coalition is in fact working on a new IP. We're going to be breaking that down along with some new Bioshock information. That's right, Bioshock 4 is a thing. It's in active development, but it may not be the Bioshock that you remember. We'll break that down, but let's get into the introductions first. I'm going to start with someone that on a regular basis makes a very big impact on the community, not only from the way that he interacts with them, but the fact of how he produces his content. And of course, he is one of half of the voices of the incredible podcast that's weekly, the DPS podcast. Slow-mo backslap, welcome to the program.
Yo, what is good, Boom? What's up, chat? What's up, Crispy and Game Pass Dad? Hope you guys having a good morning. Hope you got your cup of Joe. You're going to need it because we're going to be getting into it. And I just can't wait to get into these topics, man.
Oh, well, it's great to have you a part of the show. And yes, we are going to be breaking it down. Dreadpool is not going to be joining us today. He worked a 20-hour shift, folks, and he's exhausted.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so he'll be back next week. Joe, Mr. Badbit, who was awesome enough to who actually just got up, is going to be awesome enough to join us, even though he literally just got up. He had a big day yesterday. Obviously, if you missed out on the newest episode of the Trophy Room, folks, he got a chance to sit down for over an hour with Greg Miller from Kinda Funny Games, and that is a big deal. Yeah, he got a chance to hang out with him. He answered a bunch of questions, broke my heart a little bit about Sunset Overdrive 2, but that's why we got to get Joe in here. We're going to be talking about that too. Is Sunset Overdrive 2 potentially coming to the PlayStation 5 as an exclusive? Well, we'll know as soon as Joe gets here, but I want to introduce someone that's making his grand appearance on the Double Barrel Gaming Network. And of course, Game Pass Dad, how the heck are you, man? And what have you been up to?
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I've I haven't really been focusing on the Xbox content side of things lately, but excited to work on that some more. Normally I built up the Twitter first with the Game Pass Dad Twitter with a lot of the memes and parody and opinion there. And I've been focusing on Twitch quite a bit. But coming back to YouTube, trying to make some content there, bringing back the podcast, and very thankful to be here on such a prestigious and respected show in the community, man. I thank you for asking me to be here, man. I'm excited.
Thank you so much for the compliments. Yeah, this is a dream come true. This is really a second career for me. I mean, I always wanted to get into gaming. I always thought that I would make my way towards being a journalist.
Right.
But unfortunately, I don't like well, I love journalism. I just don't like the gaming journalism as it stands. It's a very young man's game. It's a very wear your opinion on your sleeve, and it counts more than facts. So I decided to create this channel after spending some time with Mooch and the gang on Crossfire on Friday evenings. And then I, started with one show, then two, and now I'm up to four. So it is literally a network, but it's great to have you a part of today's show. And we'll get, when we do your outros, we're going to get all of the information of where they can find you and help support your growing platform. But next up, the best voice in the business reached out to me in the DM and said, Boom, you have to talk about the coalition. I have a lot to say. Please welcome the chainsaw wielding Crispy Bomb. What's up, brother?
Oh, good morning. What is up, chat and panel? And hopefully we get some more people in here. I want to see it blow up when we get to this coalition topic, and I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, I mean it's a big topic, folks. The coalition is working on a new IP. Some people are suggesting that it is Star Wars related. We've heard rumblings that it could be an actual Mandalorian game. Remember, we did hear that come when we had Miles Dompierre on I believe it was this week. That's right. On Monday we had Miles Dompierre on, and we got a chance to talk about ZeniMax Studios getting their hands on a Star Wars license that was rumored to be a Mandalorian game. But also in that conversation, I recall remotely saying, so I would love to see the coalition tackle a new IP, and sure enough, that might in fact be the case, folks. And that is a big deal because you know what? We've seen other studios go from making their standard games to making new games. Perfect example of that is the team behind Horizon Zero Dawn. Now, this team was exclusively known for Killzone. They have 3 full games under their belt, and then they released a masterpiece in Horizon Zero Dawn. And I believe that the Coalition is the kind of studio that can produce not only an incredible Gears experience, which they're working on Gear 6, but another experience using that third person over the shoulder storytelling that they're known for. And quite frankly, they are the masters of the Unreal Engine, but we will get into that momentarily. Folks, as we wait for people to file in, we're going to be talking a little bit about Resident Evil Village. It released last night at midnight. And folks, if you enjoyed Resident 7, I think you're going to seriously enjoy this game. I wanted to do, before I give you my personal take, and obviously we're going to, not everyone got a chance to play, so we're just going to talk in general. I kind of want to go over some of the reviews because right now, as the last I checked, I think it was an 85 meta. Is the last review that I saw for all of them, and I kind of want to read some of them. Give you folks an idea of maybe you don't like Metacritic, maybe you don't go there, maybe you don't know if Resident Evil Village is going to be for you. Did Capcom deliver? Well, according to these reviews, I believe that they did. We have GameSpot gives it a 9 out of 10. They say the sequel to Resident Evil 7 leans heavily on Resident Evil 4's brand of action, but adds its own sensibility to the mix. We have VGC, that's of course our friends at the Video Game Chronicles. They give it a 4 out of 5 and says Resident Evil Village is a powerful monster, bolting together parts from Resident Evils 7 and 4 and more. The downside of this electric approach is some unevenness and less tension, especially in the relatively weak opening act. WCCF Tech, of course, that's a site that I love getting my information from. They give it a 9 out of 10, and they say Resident Evil Village is a wild, thrilling ride across seemingly every horror genre, an idea that happened to pass through the mad minds at Capcom. We have another one comes into us from Games Radar, and they were a little bit, a little stronger with their review. 3.5 out of 5. A strong start, an okay finish makes this an average out as decent, but not an amazing installment. That's pretty interesting. Windows Central gives it a 4.5 out of 5. It says Resident Evil Village is a celebration of every incarnation of legendary franchise in one slick package. Now, this is one that really made me have a little bit of a head-scratching moment. The Video Gamer. Now, I've never heard of them, but that doesn't make them not legitimate. I just never heard of them. They give it a 5 out of 10, a 50, and say this is what the reviewer had to say. And I quote, reaching the credits, I sat back exhausted and disappointed at where the series had ended up. And I'll give you one or two more. Game Informer, 9.25 out of 10. Village doesn't pull any punches when it comes to horror, but a consistent rollout of new weapons and tools make it hard to walk away from these Terrors. Destructoid, this is the last one, folks, because there's 50 of them and I only have so much time on a podcast. Destructoid gives it a 9 out of 10, which is a 90. It's going to definitely spark some conversation as to how it stacks up against its current darling of Resident Evil 7. And it has a long hill to climb to match its success financially. As for me, I think it complements it quite well and then some. So, I want to start with a slow-mo on this one. Slow-mo, there, obviously there's at least 50 reviews and, you can't read them all. You got a chance to watch some of the footage. What are your thoughts most of the reviews seem extremely high, except for a handful of bad reviews. What are your thoughts on this?
I think that's kind of part of the course. Usually what you see is with big releases is there's always a couple of outliers, a couple of not channels, but websites, publications that kind of want to make a name for themselves. Like they take like something like amazing, like a game that everyone loves, and they were like 2 out of 5. Didn't like it. Can't tell you why. It sucks. It's just like, did you do this for the clicks? I've never even heard of you. Like it always happens every single time. Take a game that is getting 8s and 9s all across the board, and there's someone that's going to give it a 4. Like usually a 4 is like reserved for like a broken game, like the game can't even be finished, and they're like, it's 4, and then they start talking about their politics, and you're just like, okay, well, whatever. So I kind of expected it. I really did it. I think right now on the Metacritic for Resident Evil Village is 84, 85, something like that, and that's what I kind of expected it to be. I said this to the homie Forte, that it seems like, and I don't really like Metacritic, but it seems like when it comes to Metacritic that if you have a long-standing franchise, as soon as that franchise drops under 90 in its releases, that it never gets back up to 90. It's always going to be like in that mid-80s range, and it just seems like reviewers just they always have this mentality for long-standing franchises where the game could only be so good because it's Resident Evil, it's Halo, it's Gears, it's Uncharted. It's like it always only hits at a certain level for them, and so it's interesting because with Metacritic, what I don't like about Metacritic is that they weight certain reviews higher than others, and they actually say that on the website, but then they don't tell you why they do that or which reviews are weighted a certain way. It's like very vague. And then they also have a thing where, for example, if someone gives a review a 3 out of 5, now to the person who reviewed it, that 3 out of 5, it should be looked at differently than a 1 out of 10 kind of review, but they just make that a 6 out of 10, which, like math wise, that would make sense, but that's not how the reviewer actually saw the game. So it's always just weird with Metacritic. I always say you can use reviews to kind of inform your opinion. Now, not really inform your opinion, but to let you know information about a game that you didn't know, but you really need to look at the game yourself to determine whether this game is going to be good for you or not. And so regardless of the reviews, I think what I've seen from it so far, the story looks really interesting. And I think if you're a big Resident Evil fan, screw the reviews. Enjoy your game and have fun.
Yeah. That's a fantastic point. Look, here's the thing. Some people actually use reviews from places like IGN and GameSpot and Kotaku to potentially decide for them if they're going to purchase a game that they may or may not know, right? And even though I don't have a problem with that, my best thing, everyone watches YouTube for one reason or another. And sometimes it is to see a gameplay trailer. Sometimes it's to see your favorite personality playing said game. And if obviously there are certain people that you stay away from because you don't trust their opinion and you don't subscribe to their channel. But my best advice is that if you can use Metacritic and kind of just get a guided idea of what the average overall people are saying, right? And you can then go to your favorite YouTuber, your favorite podcaster, and say, okay, I want to hear what Mr. Boomstick has to say. And if and then obviously if you see my opinion being a high opinion, you start going to other your favorite YouTubers, it gives you a general consensus. But I think you're right. I think if you are a Resident Evil fan, there really is no reason not to get this game for sure. Game Pass Dad, let's get your opinion on this. I know we were talking in the green room prior to going live. What are your thoughts? Have you had a chance to play Resident Evil Village, or even get a chance to watch someone else play it?
I haven't watched Village yet, but I have watched some of the previous ones in the series. Like I think I've watched some Biohazard and 6. The last Resident Evil I actually played, the only one I've ever played is Resident Evil 5, and
Okay.
that game I played for a couple of months at the time, like a couple playthroughs on like the secondary playthrough modes, and I really enjoyed that one, but I never really dove back into any of the additional ones. But really looking at this, I feel like this game, and it almost makes me want to consider the last one, like what I've learned about it so far, just seeing how it looks and the gameplay. I've honestly heard that it's more of a action oriented than more of the strategy, or the pacing might be a little bit more quick. But that's kind of the gameplay that I do enjoy. Like I'm kind of a first person shooter person, so I feel like it might be um, skewing towards that more mass market appeal to a certain extent, but it still seems like it's hitting all the notes that Resident Evil should. And it kind of does get me excited, all the hype that's around it and what I've seen. And really, when I look at that review, and kind of like what you're saying, the 5 out of 10 kind of grabs your attention, and we're not as familiar with this website. It almost seems like they're trying to possibly catch some more attention just by putting a bad review to a game that they know is going to be scored pretty well, to be a
Mhm.
little bit controversial.
Yeah.
Because reading the review, like the sentiments of that one, when I'm looking through this, like it doesn't seem like there's any real reasons why they think it's bad aside from the story and like the monsters, and it's just not scary. So it just sounds like they're mad that it's not a different game in the series that they love. So for me, it almost seems like it's a marketing play just to put a bad review to a hyped game to get people to come in and check out the rest of the website more than anything else. But honestly, looking at this and kind of hearing about it, I tried Resident Evil 4. I wasn't all the way into it, but that was when it was in Game Pass, I believe, is when I tried it. And I just don't think it was the right time for me to try and jump in. So it never really caught me. But I have heard that this one is more oriented towards that style of play. And I'm starting to get excited about it. And I kind of want to go back and play 7 and get into this one possibly here when I can find time.
Yeah, I would definitely suggest playing 7 before playing Village, because it definitely heavily piggybacks one to the other, and
Right.
even though Resident Evil 7 does not become Doom Eternal by any stretch of the truth. It is at its core a survival horror game with a tremendous amount of horror elements that have you ducking around corners and afraid to turn a corner with not enough ammunition, for sure.
Yeah.
It does allot you the ability to become a real badass with
Hmm.
your shotgun and the different weapons that you can find. So it does ultimately give you the oomph, if you will,
Right.
to take down your enemies, but never fully transitions to like a straight up FPS shooter, if you will.
That.
But I definitely would encourage you that if this is interesting, if you're interested by the banter and the community, I would definitely say give Resident Evil 7 a try, and don't try and play it on a hard level initially going through an easier level to kind of get you to feel of the game because you haven't played Resident in a while. Something I would definitely suggest. But good stuff, dude. Definitely can't wait to hear the rest of your opinion on the other topics we're going to be hitting. But Crispy Bomb, let's get your opinion on Resident Evil Village. There are two types of there are a few types of Resident Evil fans. There are extremists like me that if you slap a sticker that says Resident Evil, I'm buying it on both platforms, which I did with Resident Evil Village. I got the collector's edition for the PlayStation 4/5, and of course I got the deluxe edition on the Series X. I cannot wait to plow through this, and then when my collector's edition arrives, display the Chris Redfield statue, and then play through that on the PlayStation 5. But that review that was 5 out of 10 sounded very much like I don't like Resident Evil that it went to first person. I like my over the shoulder third person Resident, and I'm going to give it a bad review. Whereas, again, he's entitled to his opinion, and opinions like, what, a-holes, everyone has one. It may be that, and maybe something else for you. Seeing the reviews, are you interested to kind of maybe give Resident Evil Village a shot?
Not really. Not because the game's not good or anything like that. I rarely ever think of Metacritic as a legitimate source for what I want to think about a game. And I generally, if I want to play it, I play it. And if you like Resident Evil, you should play it. There's no reason not to. Especially if you like Resident Evil 7. I mean, most of the reviews even, state that, if you like that type of game, me, I've played Resident Evil 2, dabbled in the other ones, more of a third person, type perspective for me. I'd rather have that. At the same time, I'm not saying I wouldn't pick it up at a discount. I think my girlfriend would really like this game. Honestly, she beat Blair Witch, which I was just like, I can't play that game. I don't like it. You know what I mean? But she enjoyed it, and from what I've read, they have toned down, from Resident Evil 7 with this iteration, just a little bit on the horror, which might turn her off in Resident Evil 7 because she got pretty frightened at times in Blair Witch, and I was like, that scared you? Seriously? Like, you couldn't see that coming, babe? Like, but that's one thing I say, like, find people that you respect, that like the same games, like yourself. If you love Resident Evil, you'll pick it up all the time, but you'll also give your honest opinion. You know what I mean? And that's what means something, because if it's not a good Resident Evil iteration, you're going to call it out. And we know that about you. So that's what I say. You can look at Metacritic, you could take it with a grain of salt, but find a Twitch streamer, find somebody that's in line with what you like, and use their opinion, because generally they're going to be honest and they're going to treat those games with care. And I think that's important for people to realize. Like I always say, meta who, like it doesn't matter. That score could mean jack-ish to you. All right. So. Right. And unfortunately, people abuse it, which is even worse. Like you're just gonna put that little blurb and give it a 5. Like, does the game not work? That's basically the way I look at a score of a 5 or under. Does the game not work? Can you not complete it? Yeah. Is it impassable? You know what I mean? And for it to get a 5, that's ridiculous. That guy, clickbait. That's all that is.
Yeah. No,
completing the game, Crispy. You ask for so much, man.
I know the absolutely nerve. Should you do a full review by beating the game? I say just play it for an hour and then give you a review. Joe, welcome to the program, Joe. How you feeling?
First off, I gotta say I'm sorry that I was late today. Returnal's taking all my sleep, and I just want it to stop. I stayed up again till like 3 or 4 a.m. just I'm getting the platinum. I got the real ending. I'm 3 trophies away, and so I see the finish line. Nice. I don't want to start Resident Evil till I get this thing beat. But my question, since I walked in halfway through this conversation like a real rude jerk, who gave it a 5 out of 10?
Well, the name of the reviewing site is the Video Gamer. I've never heard of them. They give it a 5.
Videogamer.com. Sorry.
Yeah, they give it a 5
No.
out of 10, and basically they said, reaching the credits, I sat back exhausted and disappointed at where the series had ended up. 5 out of 10. The only lower review out of all of them was Games Radar. They gave it a 3.5 out of 10, but everything else,
That's still good, right?
yeah. Well, I mean, dude, most of the reviews that I pulled, and like I said, I pulled say I have about maybe 30 of them here.
Yeah,
They're all in the high 8s, high 9s.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, they're extremists that give it a 10 out of 10. I don't really think any game is a 10 out of 10, to be honest. But Joe, for you, where does your excitement level go for Resident Evil Village?
Walking in, I feel like the exact same with Crispy. I first and foremost, I walk into I don't look at Metacritic at all until like someone says something outrageous, and I'm like, all right, I'll click the site. I'll see what the mean man said about your game. But like genuinely, like I don't care, because what Crispy said again, also like hitting the nail on the head, is I have my reviewers that I go for games. So that's who I turn to. Like personally for me, I love Skilled Up. Skill Up is honest to goodness,
a lot of people do. Yeah.
He is one of the most thorough. He is the most thorough reviewer out there. Like his Resident Evil review was like 20 plus minutes long. I think his Returnal one was like 40 minutes long. Like he's getting you in the weeds, and he's really telling you what you like. And he's the type of gamer that I think I am as well in terms of his taste. So you really got to go with who's the reviewer that you think you align.
It's funny you say. It's funny,
most,
because actually, literally, Joe said that. I said,
really?
Yeah, no. I literally said that before you got here. I said the best advice I can offer is, if you don't trust Metacritic or you don't like the gaming media, go to your favorite personality on YouTube that you trust.
Yeah,
and see what they have to say.
Because there are some, like the Returnal reviews, like I just literally learned, because I was like, what's this? I just learned, like, what is this, the controversy about a reviewer not actually beating the game and then giving it a score? Like, I don't even care if it was a low score, but like I don't feel like that's right. You should. It's not like, what is it? Ebert and Roper like go into a movie and they're like, I watched about an hour 30 minutes of this 2-hour film. I think I know where it's going, and I'm 2 thumbs up.
Thumb up.
So,
only in the gaming industry, man.
Only in the gaming industry. And then like you get these reviews that are like, dude, like the one reviewer was just like, she's reviewing Returnal, and then she talks about like Democrats and Republicans. I'm like, what are we doing here? I thought we're reviewing a game about
usually
aliens.
Play games to get away from politics, not bring politics into my games.
What is this? What, like, come on, dude. I like, Jesus. So yeah, that's why like I don't care about the review scores. That said, though, what I'm hearing about Resident Evil Village, it is, though, with all the like really high scores, it does seem like a bit of I'm gonna have to wait and see, because personally, I love 7, right? 7 is my second favorite in the series of which I've played. Followed, the only one being higher is Resident Evil 2 Remake.
Yes.
And I love those games because they're scary as shit to me. And so when I hear, it's more like 4, I like 4. I just beat 4. But 4 wasn't scary to me. And I feel like that's the essence of Resident Evil for me. So to me, even with the glowing reviews, when people are like, it's more action focused, I kind of feel like, that's a bit of a bummer, because I feel like the next one is going to be like, here's the action game again. Like Capcom's going to trip over themselves, and make another Resident Evil 6 type of deal. Exactly. And that's what I'm kind of worried about with this game. So it does seem like a wait, even the like Skill Up, he's like, I recommend this game, though I didn't like this game. And it was a really It was a really, or didn't jive with him. It was a really awesome review because it kind of took his feelings of where the series should go out of it. That said, though, at the end of the day, like 5 isn't a bad score. It just means it's mediocre. And I feel like the biggest problem with reviews is they're afraid to explore the scale. I talked to Ains about this a few weeks ago, and he's just like, dude, if you see a 6 in a game, that doesn't make it bad. It's good. That means literally good. 7, very good, great. 9, very great. And so I feel like, yeah, we have these personal attachments to these games or what we want them to do, and we kind of get off track with the scores. Because if it's, to me, I think also what Slow-Mo says, like, if when you make a game that's a game in a franchise, there's an expectation, but there's also an expectation that review is going to be an 8 or above. And that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, no, I mean, good stuff as always, for sure. Before we move on to the next topic, we're closing in on 300 people already here. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and hanging out. I got to catch up on some of these incredible super chats. Raiden Blade drops the first one of the day for $5 and says, hey, listening from work. Oh, and Game Pass. It's making money, people. Have to understand that to make money, you got to spend money. Just stop puppet watching. Oh, that's very true, dude. And you know something? You were 100%. My dad used to say it all the time. You got to spend money to make money, son. That's crazy that I hear that. King One Supreme drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, Microsoft should buy 3 Fields Entertainment, Burnout 3 devs, give them a budget to make a proper spiritual successor to Burnout 3. Thoughts? I would actually quite like that. I'd love to see a spiritual successor, but you know what racing game I would love to see come back and come into the rotation? I'd love to see what Turn 10 could do with a Project Gotham. I mean, that's an old an old school racing franchise that's obviously dead, but I'd love to see that come back in a big way. We have Dan Lazaro drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, why can't he review it a 5 out of 10 without criticism? No one's saying he can't review it without criticism, but if you hear what he said, it seems very one sentence like, I mean, I'm sure everyone's entitled to their opinion, Dan. I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't, count it as an important, but a 5 out of 10. I agree with Slow-Mo. Basically, 5 out of 10 is telling me the game doesn't work. At least I agree with him on that. He drops an additional $2 super chat and says, I loved RE games, but they all feel and look the same. Well, I mean, listen, dude, it's and Game Pass Dad. Hey, thanks for this, dude. He drops a $5 super chat and said, someone say Game Pass. Indeed, we do. We talk about Game Pass a lot on this program, but I definitely want to get over to topic number 2. And Joe, I'm glad you're here, because I'm going to have to weigh on you very heavily. You had a chance to sit down with Greg Miller.
Sure.
And you said yesterday on the Xbox Factor podcast that he broke your heart. Yeah. And in turn, saying so broke mine as well. And I kind of want to talk about Nibble. He is a sleuth that's on Twitter. And
you mean Nibble?
Nibble. I said Nibble.
Nibble.
Yeah, there you go. That's the old man eyes.
I love you. Continue. Sorry.
So Nibble on Twitter spotted that Sunset Overdrive was successfully registered by the PlayStation firm late last month at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Now, obviously, maybe you don't know who Sunset Overdrive is or what it is. It was released in 2014. It's an action-adventure shooter for Xbox, which at the time was one of the few games that Insomniac worked on that was actually on that was not on a PlayStation console. And you fought armies of mutants, and it was a wild story. The game was really banked on you being able to move around through sliding and skating on walls and rail grinding. Once you hit the floor, the game just basically, it was like molasses, which wasn't good. But obviously now Insomniac Games is in fact a first-party studio for the PlayStation. Now, obviously, we had a confirmation from Insomniac themselves back in 2018 that they currently own the Sunset Overdrive IP, and that the original game, though, on the Xbox One consoles, is exclusive. And although the trademark registry, Joe, isn't indicative of any plans to revive the game, it does potentially open the door. But now we have to then again close that door thanks to Greg Flippin' Miller, who broke our hearts. Why don't you tell us about what Greg had to say on the chances of Sunset Overdrive 2 actually becoming a PlayStation 5 exclusive?
It's very slim to none. And that makes me sad.
Man.
And honestly, it does make a lot of sense. Pretty much there's trademark law, everyone. They have to renew the license, ergo they're going to renew the license. It doesn't mean they're going to actually use it at the end of the day. It's just them trying to just protect their IP
investment. Yeah,
it's their investment. So, Insomniac has been trying to get that done for a while now, and PlayStation, now that they're owned by it, sealed the deal under the PlayStation name. Pretty much the way I got it, or the way I understand it, as my memory's working, as I just woke up because Returnal takes my sleep, is when we think about it, does that game fit in the PlayStation Studios, slate of games?
Being biased, I say yes.
I still say yes. But you see a lot of those mechanics in Sunset Overdrive live on through Spider-Man.
Mhm.
And I just and so when I see PlayStation going, okay, do I really want to put this old Xbox game on my platform, which didn't sell well to begin with, and to see if there's actually a need for a sequel? It's not the case. So chances of this happening are slim to none. That said, as well, when it comes to the rumor, a lot of people, or some people, have already come out to debunk it, saying like, listen, I know it's on the ground floor. It's not that. Like, it's not happening. So I'm a little sad by this news, Boom, because I seem like I'm the only person that really loved this game. And I'm sad it's not going anywhere.
Well, you're not the only one. I played through it.
Not.
I quite enjoyed it. You know what, Slow-mo, let's bring you into the conversation here. Okay, so we have it on good authority from Greg Miller, who obviously he's a PlayStation guy, so he knows a lot of people within the PlayStation. He knows quite a few of them, the very higher ups. My question isn't if or when anymore, but my question to you is should. Now we PlayStation was criticized early this month, and that led into this early of this month and late last month, when they came out and said that they want to focus on big AAA bombs, and that the weird little titles were no longer going to take precedent in the PlayStation brand. And a lot of people within the community and in gaming media stood strong against Sony on this, and actually said, hey, listen, that's what makes Sony great. Don't do this, because their blockbusters are fantastic. There's no one is going to sit here. Listen, I will say this. If you are someone that doesn't like them, I completely understand you. But if you're going to sit there and try and tell me that these games like God of War and Horizon and Uncharted and all of these games and Last of Us are just not worthy, then we're not even going to have a conversation, because then you're BSing me. These games, maybe they're not your games, but they're masterpieces in their own right. So we know that they could do the big blockbusters, but they have always traditionally done weird little ones, and a Sunset Overdrive 2 could be a compliment to the Spider-Man 2 and the Resistance remake that we hear that they're making. Look, I mean, obviously, I always make an opinion based on evidence. Maybe that's the police officer in me. But after trademarking this, right, it's pretty interesting that, its original director went back to rejoin Insomniac earlier this year. And I mean, obviously that is saying something. Do you want to see a Sunset Overdrive 2 from Sony?
I absolutely do, because I like Babbitt and like you. I really enjoyed Sunset Overdrive. The humor was hilarious. It's just a really fun game. It reminded me a lot of like Jet Set Radio from back in the the original Xbox days with the rail grinding, and it's got that trademark Insomniac humor that you don't really get too often anywhere else. And I think having something that's a little different, that isn't a guaranteed blockbuster hit, is what makes you unique. I liken it to the way Sean Layton once talked about a smaller game that they made, and how he said, well, it wasn't going to be a major seller, but that's okay. Like we knew that ahead of time, but we thought it was so unique that it needed to be done. And I don't want Sony to lose that kind of direction when it comes to first party games, that not everything has to be a blockbuster hit. I know they are still approving of first party games. That's still happening. Like they're still going to do new IP, but it seems like that new IP needs to hit really well. That new IP needs to be a blockbuster hit and have like a 90 Metacritic in order to really get any further sequels. And I don't think that's like that approach is always necessary when you're dealing with your first party games. I don't think that's always necessary. Now, Drew Murray going back to Insomniac, that could very well be Resistance, because he also was a director on Resistance as well. So I actually do think it's Resistance, because they've done some tweets that kind of have.
They've done quite I wish Big Cloud was here, because he's been following it like a detective.
And I think it's going to be a PSVR game as well. I really do feel like that
God,
way.
I hope not. Don't do that.
No, because listen, a lot of people,
they are big on VR though.
Yeah. They are huge. Yeah, they were huge with the Vive. Like they have or had, I don't know now, multiple studios or teams in VR. So if they're able to do something cool with it, like if they're able to Half-Life Alyx this game, I wouldn't mind it, man. I wouldn't mind it.
It could in fact be a launch title for the rumored in development PlayStation 5 VR.
Exactly, dude. 100%.
I could listen. I love my PlayStation VR quite a bit. I enjoy it a lot. I haven't used it in a while. I won't lie, but I do enjoy it, and I would love to see Resistance return. I don't want it to be returned only as a VR game. I would be disappointed. Resistance, Fall of Man is in my top 5 PlayStation 3 games of all time. I absolutely adored that game. Like it's just one of my favorite. I just think it was so well done, and I cannot wait for a sequel. Hopefully we will get one. But let's Game Pass Dad, let's get you in on the conversation here. Again, Greg Miller basically gave us information that we should not expect one. But my question to you is, do you want to see Sony make a weird game and let Insomniac kind of let their freak flag fly with a follow-up to what many people, including me and Mr. Babbitt, thought was a fantastic game?
Right. I feel like Sony is the company that can definitely take those risks, especially in the single player space itself. Definitely they have the studios, like the talent with the studio that can do it. It's a first party studio now. I kind of feel that this move might be more them just securing the IP in case they want to use it, but I'm definitely all for the innovation of taking it to the next level, because due to the time frame that this game was made in, like I definitely had fun with it when I played it. I never completed a playthrough, but it was definitely interesting. Definitely had the grinding like Jet Set Radio Future vibes.
Yep.
It was said earlier. But to me, it says more or less that it is a move to secure IP for a company that belongs to them, that if they do want to utilize it for VR or try and give someone the chance to run with it, like definitely that's the type of innovation that we really want to see in the gaming world. Because after the last generation, like it was sequel after sequel after sequel. So of course, something that pushes that envelope, no matter who it comes from, I would love to see. But there is the stigma of how it performed on the Xbox and what ended up happening with it. Is it too much of a risk for them? Because I don't really feel like Sony is the company that can necessarily afford to take as big of a loss that Microsoft could. And I don't think Sony's a company that puts good money after bad. So part of this is probably a little bit for a W, just in the space of, hey, we have your game now, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I feel like that makes some people happy, but of course I want them to make it because eventually I'll probably be able to play it on PC. So that's fantastic as well. And I do feel that a move to not every single game being a blockbuster, like it kind of speaks back towards like what we've been talking about, like the problem with Metacritic and um, the criticism that Game Pass receives is just that the fact that not all of these games get scored like a 9 or a 10, like everyone just says Game Pass is full of garbage, where I find nothing but new amazing games to play every single day, to the point where I have a Game Pass backlog of games that I'd love to play that I don't have time, and that's perfectly fine. So I feel like if anything, it could eventually be a game that, even if it's not perfect, might end up in whatever PlayStation eventually has as an answer to Game Pass or part of like PlayStation Plus. I feel like it would be amazing for them to follow up on it.
Yeah, I mean that's a fantastic point and really well described. Crispy, let's get your final opinion on this now. Game Pass Dad said something very interesting, and he said something to the effect that that Sony may not want to follow a game that didn't do well initially, and I have to harken back to Uncharted 1. Uncharted 1 is not a great game. It is an average game. The shooting mechanics are terrible, right? But we have to look at what they did on the follow-up. Again, in my top 5 games of all time, Uncharted 2 on the PlayStation 3 is in the top 5. It's one of my favorite PlayStation 3 games. I absolutely adored it, and it was leaps and bounds. And I'm talking very high leaps and very, very high bounds better than its original offering in Uncharted 1. They did everything. They turned the dial up to 11. And one thing that I hear a lot of people talk about that it's slightly frustrating is, well, Sunset Overdrive didn't do good. Well, there's a couple of reasons why. I'm looking at you, Xbox community. Again, not every game is for every gamer, but if you complain about exclusives, you didn't support this one. But we also have to take into account when this game was released, and this is a conversation that very rarely rises to the top, there were only 10 million Xbox Ones in the wild. And obviously this came out at the time where we saw the media turn on Xbox based on, some decisions that they made and some marketing moves that they made with knuckleheads that are no longer a part of the company. Good old Donnie D, obviously. Do you want to see Insomniac get a second shot at really taking this game to the next level?
I think it's only logical. I'm a firm believer that unless the IP was just thoughtless or anything like that, most games, even if they don't do well in their first iteration, deserve a second one. A lot of games usually improve upon themselves. Now, I played a small bit of Sunset Overdrive, not really my type of game, but I can see where the addictive gameplay is, and that's a big deal. It's definitely a different game, and I think it definitely deserves something. Even if it's down the road, AAA can be anything. I mean, there's some AA devs that have come out with AAA quality games, and you don't necessarily have to put a ton of your team on this. You can, how are they going to introduce Sunset Overdrive to the PlayStation community? That's my first question, because for anybody that has just a PlayStation for like their entire life, they don't even know what it is. So why not give it a shot? And, it's just one of those sad things where For Joe, I feel bad because it's like I really want this, and you just feel like you just got let down by your hero. You know what I mean? He's just like, no, it's not gonna happen. But that's not to say that they can't change their mind. At the end of the day, you need games like this. There are so many games in Game Pass that I would have never played, and thank you, Game Pass. And maybe that's the problem that PlayStation has right now, is that all these games that could potentially be $70. Is it worth the development cost if you're not going to sell enough of them? And that's why I hope for IPs like this, there's a platform, a much better one that they introduce that really can enhance these games and give them a good audience. And I think that's important. That's important for gaming legacy, because not every game is going to be the huge blockbuster. And a lot of innovation comes from these games. And if we lose that, it would be really sad.
I absolutely agree. I think that again, what I want to see done with this game is we saw Ninja Theory, right? Allow a small dev to make a very small game. Now the game didn't do well, right? It failed, right? But Microsoft said it was a passion project, and it and now it's defunct, right? So the 12 people that worked on it, this is what they wanted to put out. It had legs for a bit, and then it just died. Okay, these things happen. Sunset Overdrive, especially from Insomniac, the way that they make games, and listen, they have made one bad game in their career. Some people will say that the last Ratchet and Clank, not on the PlayStation 4, but the one before it, where you had the 4 players, they made it co-op, wasn't so great. And I would agree with that. It went too far away from what the original that we know and love was. But you really got to trust a developer like Insomniac Games. And you know what? We know that they're working on Spider-Man 2. We know, or at least we have suggestions that, a Resistance Fall of Man will be coming soon. Could they add another game like Sunset Overdrive 2 to their repertoire? I don't know if it would be too much for them, but I would love to see it regardless, because again, it's a franchise. It allows them to be Insomniac with the weirdness and the wild weapons and the wild colors. This is something that we see, or we saw, from many of the Ratchet and Clanks, and we're going to get in June with, of course, the new Ratchet and Clank, which looks just absolutely stunning. But I definitely want to move on to the next topic, folks. And before we get into the big Gears topic, I want to talk about Bioshock, because this is a franchise that people have been clamoring for a return. Obviously, they released the 3 Bioshock games. Not only are they backwards compatible, but they had released them in HD versions. I played through all of them again. I absolutely loved the series, but we do have absolute confirmation that Bioshock 4 is currently in development at a new studio called Cloud Chamber. Now, the studio includes many developers who worked on all of the previous Bioshock games, but the absence of Ken Levine have left many fans wondering about the future of the series. Now, in a story that I pulled from the pages of GameRant.com, we now have some new information that suggests the new Bioshock may be very different from its previous iterations, and in my opinion, might actually be a good thing. Now, based on several job postings for positions at Cloud Chamber, Bioshock 4 may be going in a very different direction than the previous games in its dystopian sci-fi franchise. In fact, the path Bioshock appears to be going down, based on the article, bears the resemblance, folks, to the recent Assassin's Creed games, which might mean a lot of big changes coming to what make many people in the community consider their favorite franchise of all time. Now, there is evidence that BioShock will be adding an RPG-style dialogue option in the next game, giving players a choice on what path they go down. Now, a Cloud Chamber job listing for the position is asking for a senior voice designer requested to have experience in designing similar dialogue systems. Now, more divergence based on the player decisions and dialogue options could certainly help distinguish Bioshock 4 from Infinite, which was the last one that was released. And a couple, let me just read this last excerpt from the article, and then I'll get everyone's opinion. There's also evidence, folks, that that Cloud Chamber could be aiming for a more open world experience through the location of where Bioshock 4 is going to be set, and that has yet to be revealed. A job listing for a systems designer position requested that they have a sense of how game systems connect and enhance one another in an emergent sandbox world. So that definitely screams open world to me. Now, while neither of these job postings definitively prove anything that we've talked about, it certainly definitely, at least again in my opinion, suggests it. Slow Mo, let me get your opinion on this. Now, Bioshock is a trilogy that is beloved by many. Now, again, not every game is for every gamer, so I'm sure there's going to be people, the near 350 people we have here in the chat, be like, I didn't really like it. Okay, if you didn't, that's okay. Do you think changing what Bioshock was into maybe a more action open world RPG is something that the series actually needs?
I would say probably, yeah. At this point, I mean, you did a trilogy. You had Bioshock 1, 2, and Infinite, and it's interesting because there's always, whenever there's like a IP that is pretty popular or has a pretty strong fan base, there are those who never want it to change. They just want it to be exactly the way it's always been. And then there are those who are like, yeah, give me something different. Give me something that's more modern to what we've been playing recently, or just something innovative. And I think that there is a such thing as franchise fatigue, that if you continue to keep doing the same exact thing all the time, that you're going to slowly dwindle away the number of people who are going to be interested in it. Only the hardcore of that IP, of that fans of that IP will actually continue to engage with it. And I think you have to innovate. So you have to make some changes. And maybe Ken Levine not being a part of it isn't a deal breaker. I'm pretty sure some people aren't happy about it, but I'm interested in seeing where they take it and where they go with it. And I'm not going to write it off initially, like some people might. But it's also there's no guarantee that being different is going to turn out well. Like we've seen some games try to be innovative, and it ended up kind of like with egg on their face. It didn't work out the way they wanted it to. But it's a chance that you have to take, because just playing it safe all the time, it's never going to work out for you.
Well, I mean, listen, where do you go? Like, you had Bioshock 1 and 2, and it was underwater, and it was awesome, right? No denying that. Then they went to the skies, right? And in some instances, in some portions of the game, went back underwater. Where do you go? Do you go into a cave? Do you go to outer space? So I think they inherently have to change if you want people to be, again, Ken Levine crafted a masterpiece, in my opinion, and I love the trilogy. My favorite still is the original. I absolutely adored it. Played it. I think I beat it 5 times, and quite enjoyed it. But I have, and again, this is a new developer. Like, I've never heard of Cloud Chamber, so I don't know what else they have done, to be honest with you. But they are apparently housing some of the original development team members from the original Bioshock game. So that is saying something for sure. I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm excited because Bioshock isn't going to be one of those series that you don't hear from. And I'm happy that we could potentially get a really good one, but only time is going to tell. Game Pass Dad, let's get your opinion on the Bioshock trilogy. Did you play the original 3, and what are your thoughts on the new information that we have regarding Bioshock 4 being very different than the originals?
Yeah, Bioshock the original was one of my favorite games of all time. Bioshock 2, I played most of it. I feel like when that came out, I wasn't really as deep into gaming as I am now or was before. And Infinite, I've definitely played, but again, haven't really completed it. So I've played 2 and 3 enough to write a very thorough review. Um, but basically, I do love the series. I feel like one of the biggest things about Bioshock, though, is like the ending of it and the whole pacing and the story of it. Like it really, that whole turn changed the would you kindly changed how I looked at video gaming
Mm-hmm.
in general, just the way they motivate you to move through a story. And you sit there and you look at like the whole what makes a man and just the whole
Same.
experience itself was like such a
Yeah.
moving and it's like a work of art, really. It really
I have a question for
redefined.
you, Game Pass Dad.
Yeah.
Um, what did how old were you when you had that? Would you kindly twist hit you?
I think I was like 16 or 18, just around end of high
Yeah.
school there. So I mean, it might have meant a little bit differently, but I was still old enough to appreciate.
Oh,
Uh,
no.
yeah, yeah,
Because I'm thinking of my own memories. Like I think, just getting into high school,
yeah,
and when I saw that, like that literally opened my young brain of going, "Oh,
right,
whoa, games could be more than shooty
yeah.
bang bangs. This is the coolest thing
Yeah,
ever." Yeah,
it kind of made me appreciate, like, what an art form it could be, and, I feel like BioShock, the series, out of anything, like, the gameplay is amazing, solid across. I know 1 and 2 were real solid games and a lot of fun to play and really interesting atmospheres to be in, but the one takeaway that will never leave me, that impacted, like, how I look at the rest of my life even, was that moment when you sit there and you realize how you've been moving through this game just at the behest of some random character that you meet after a ride in a submarine and you're talking to him on the radio and you're just like, oh yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that right now. Like that's the thing to do. We're just doing it. And then you're just like, wait a second. I've been mind controlled the whole time without even knowing it. Like it really was like a twisted, like mind-bending experience in itself. So I don't feel like you're gonna necessarily be able to very easily recreate that. And the question is like how much of that experience, because I feel like that was kind of like the problem with the other ones. And I guess I never got to the point to see if there were big moments like that in 2 or 3. Um, which if there were, like definitely someone let me know because I do need to play through them. It's just time is not always on my side here because like, basically, previously, just with what I did before this, I just wasn't really gaming all the time. But essentially, just how much of that experience was just up to Ken Levine and how much was up to the team itself. So if we have like that talented team that can put out these assets and put out that game, like how much do we have someone that is from that, or is it all Ken Levine's vision and his mind state and his design that really made these games available? Because um like you said, I don't know, I say take it right back to underwater because that is BioShock, like, maybe there's other cities or other things or maybe even recreated, but at the same time, why do we have to stick to the BioShock IP just because we have it? Because I feel like being a spiritual successor in a lot of cases, in a lot of gaming, um, avenues, like, I'm thinking, like, the way From Software works with the Souls type games, like, they've gone from, like, Demon Souls to Dark Souls to Bloodborne to Sekiro. There is a fan base just for the games that are made there, like, do we need to always ride an IP all the way into the ground, even if like if I'm not remembering incorrectly, like I believe some of the things that were designed for Infinite were possibly considered to be made into a different game, but they're like, no, let's just throw it in here and we're gonna do that because Bioshock is the IP. Like, do we have to always stick to that? Or maybe is it a better time if it's gonna really change the way the game plays, or maybe even make it a different like I mean it could just be a different story to that. Those are the kind of questions that arise in myself, but I'm always for innovative gameplay and telling new stories and really those mind-blowing gaming experiences. I feel like those are fewer and farther between. Like I probably have only had like 3 to 5 in my life. So I definitely am always welcoming of that as well.
Great stuff, dude. Like, really, I love the fact that you were able to share. First of all, being 18 and getting that, what Joe was asking about, the question that the main, which initially became the antagonist of the whole game, which we never,
Right.
I don't think anyone saw coming until literally the end.
Yeah.
Um, Thanks for sharing that with you, Crispy Bomb. Let's get your opinion on this, brother. Obviously, Bioshock is a game that resonates with a lot of people. It is a classic franchise going all the way back to 2007 when it originally launched on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 and saw a total of 3 iterations and then an HD collection, which again, like I said, I played through the entire collection and loved every second of it. Do you want to see them return in a big way, very samey, or are you excited to see what they could potentially do with making a more broader world to explore?
Well, for me, never touch any Bioshock. So blasphemy, shame on me. It's one of those things, like at that point in time in the 360 era, I was deep into Gears, very deep. And the funny thing is that having like very little money, like you bought a couple games, and this is why I really am huge about Game Pass. You bought a couple games and you played them until the wheels fell off. And that's basically what I did. The one thing I'll say is as I've seen over the years, games innovate. I think, Bioshock was definitely one of them. The problem I see is that a new dev taking over it seems like a tall order, a really tall order. And I don't know if it's going to please the previous fans and reinvigorate or, establish new fans. And that's always a big issue with games nowadays, especially ones that have multiple iterations, even trilogies, is how do you reinvent the wheel, or do you just put out the same product? And somebody's going to be mad. We all know this. So
right.
It's inevitable, but it needs to happen. I mean, there's always going to be somebody that just doesn't like it, and that's fine. Okay. But you do need to, bring a new thought process, especially with the new hardware that's out. I think they could probably do a lot of crazy things just from what Bioshock did back then. So, I mean, it should happen. They haven't been touched in so long. It feels like that it's time to, do something with that IP. And, like I said, it still seems like a tall order.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think one of the saving graces in the conversation is the fact that a good portion of the team that's currently there worked on the other Bioshocks, more specifically Bioshock 1 and 2. I know I see some people talking about that there was innovation in the series when they went to Infinite, and yeah, absolutely it was. There's no doubt about it. But again, I want to see what they do with this game. I'm very excited that the series isn't dead. I feel the same way about Dead Space. Like whenever Dead Space 4 is announced, if it is, I mean, we don't know, right? I mean, I think that we're going to see the same way that we're getting a Mass Effect trilogy HD remaster. I think that once those sales numbers go through, and we know EA, they're whore masters. They love money, right? Once Mass Effect sells better than some new games that were just released, they're going to give us a Dead Space trilogy. And once that sells, because I know that I will buy that in a second, they will then maybe consider releasing a follow-up to that franchise. Again, this is all hypothetical, but Joe, let's get your final opinion on Bioshock 4. Do you think that it's time? Obviously, it's been a while since Infinite came out, and this is a new team. Do you have any concerns for the open worldness, if you will, of the game potentially changing from what we originally knew the series to be to something new entirely?
Yes. And I'm going to tell you why. So first, I don't get too nervous when like new people tack on to a project, like just because it's not the same person that made it or wrote it or whatever have you, doesn't mean that thing's going to be bad. You need creators that respect the original creators. I mean, you could just look at comic books is a great example,
Yes.
right? Stanley, created so many of these iconic characters, and look, they live on. And like Lord and Miller made the best Spider-Man movie with Into the Spider-Verse.
Some people consider it to be the Spider-Man movie of all Spider-Man movies.
It is. That's fact. So, so it doesn't. All they have to do is respect the mythos of that property, and they got something. But this is where I get concerned. So for what I'm aware of, this is a new studio. There is some older folks that worked on the previous games on this, which gives me a little bit of hope. But when I hear open dialogue and when I hear, when I hear open world, that's not what Bioshock is. Bioshock's very deliberate in the way that they're showing you this world and how they're telling you this world. So, like, one of the biggest things about Bioshock that I love is the audio logs, right?
Yeah.
They're explaining you and they're giving you all that you need to know. They're monologuing you all these moments and filling you with the story, the backstory, the culture of this forgotten place, right? If you do that in an open world game, how does that work? It just doesn't, because you're going to pick up a piece explaining the story, or maybe you're not, right? Maybe you miss out on that. With Bioshock, it is purposely where they want you to explore a little bit, but within their confines. Like, there are a lot of, I'm thinking of Bioshock Infinite. I'm thinking of the environments of, like, where they, like, there's portions of it segregated, and you got to see that and go, wow, this sucks. This place sucks. The fear is losing that, because what I see from what I hear from this is what I hear with Fallout 4. Fallout 4 took a lot of things from other RPGs like BioWare, but they didn't really do anything other than that. They didn't innovate higher than it. They were just like, this is what these games are doing now, so we'll just do it, instead of saying, this is what games are doing now, how can we do it better? That's concerns me. And at the same time, the reason why I have a little bit more faith in Halo Infinite, because they're doing a semi-open world, right? Rumor has it it's a one camera shot, day-night cycles and all that, is because we know that team and we know that leadership. So although it is Halo's adopted child, and although the fondness of 343 may differ on folks, you at least know who's manning the project. We don't know that here. And so that's why, as a Bioshock fan, I'm not a fan of this direction, because I would love an evolution of, hey, this is BioWare done, or Bioshock done a little bit differently, but it's going to be familiar and not just caught up with the times, but innovating on it. So that's my concern, man. I don't need, not every game needs to be open world. The reason why I'm loving Returnal right now is because it gives me those Bioshock feels, because there's these corridors, these audio logs, and you're just like, what the hell is going on here? And you're constantly intrigued, and you constantly like, I want to keep on exploring more. I want to know what where the next audio log is, and where the next weird tablet is, so that I could read these strange words. Like, that's what this game needs to be. I don't know. Maybe like, if it was like procedurally generated.
No, don't do that, please.
That'd be different.
Yeah, that'd be different.
You're in a Jigsaw world.
Would not play that game, because then it would be a roguelite, and I don't like roguelite, which is why I'll never get to Returnal unless it's for free, because after what's been going on with that team.
Real talk, and I could just get a short rant.
Sure.
First patch was fine. First patch was excellent. This is the last patch. What are you doing?
I heard the last patch 1.13 point something or other was basically broke the game worse.
Yeah, so for me, what I'm running into, because like I've experienced just 2 crashes, and it's not the end of the world. That happens. But the thing that annoys me is in a run, in one level. It's one level in particular, and I kind of understand it, because like, there's a lot going on in this level. Like, I don't understand how it exists, but there's a weird audio glitch. And that's, I think, the thing that is crashing crashing people's games for sure. But again, I love it. It's my game of the year so far. But
No,
yeah, it's
I
got
mean,
works.
listen, yeah,
It
no,
needs some
no,
work.
obviously, it's definitely in your wheelhouse. So good on you for enjoying it, folks. We're really running through the topics here today because we're already at the topic 4. This is the big one of the show. If you are an Xbox fan, if you are a Coalition fan, if you have been clamoring for the Coalition to make something other than Gears, and I think this topic is going to be for you. And of course, when you talk about Gears, you can't say Gears without saying Crispy Bomb. Crispy, we're going to get to you in a second, brother, and we do have a lot to cover regarding this because there is some really big information regarding Gears of War developer, the Coalition, and the new IP that is apparently in active development. And this comes to us from friend of the show and industry insider, Jeffrey Grubb. Now, I say that because that's what the name that Greg Miller gave me. Told us a story a couple weeks ago when he was on about how he got the Jeffrey Grubb name, and it is hilarious. But we do know, thanks to Jeff, that they're working on a third project, and it actually might be a Star Wars related game. Now, if you don't know who the Coalition is, maybe you are new to the world. Maybe you're new to the community. The Coalition, obviously, is an Xbox Game Studios first party developer. They've only made the long-running with Gears of War franchise, but according to rumors around the industry outside of Jeff, the development studio is working on a new IP. Now, during the last episode of his The Games Mess show, VentureBeat's Jeff Grubb spilled the beans about the Coalition working on a new intellectual property, or IP for short, and that Xbox Game Studios is working hard on Halo Infinite, which of course they are right there with them. If you didn't know, that's right. The Coalition has really sent in the big help, the big guns to help finish Halo Infinite. And of course, having them on that team tells me that it's really all hands on deck. But apparently the team is not only working on a new installment of Gears, which would probably be Gear 6 or even Gears of War titled whatever. Not only are they currently helping 343 Industries put the final and finishing touches on Halo Infinite, apparently, according to Jeff, they are working on a Star Wars game. Now, the Coalition has never done anything outside of Gears. We know that they have now stretched their wings with helping with Halo, and now this rumored project that could in fact be a Mandalorian game, which we heard about. This is exactly what Jeff Grubb had to say. I'm going to read both quotes, folks, so stand by. He says, Gears Studio, the Coalition is busy, in parentheses. They are working on Halo. They are helping with Halo Infinite. That is one of the biggest projects the Coalition is contributing to in a major way. Coalition is also, of course, making the next Gears game. And of course, they're going to do that. But the Coalition is also working on a third thing, and it's likely a new IP. Now, I've heard rumors that it could be a Star Wars thing from out of the Coalition, but I haven't been able to confirm that. And these are rumors that have been kicked around a few different places. That's right. Other industry insiders have been banging this Star Wars Coalition drum for quite some time. He continues with, so it's hard to track down, but basically, I'm not putting any money on that right now. But the Coalition is working on a third thing, so we'll see what that turns into. It's probably still quite a ways off, and whether that comes out before the new Gears, I honestly don't know. Maybe it's in the prototype phase, but they are considering something new. Crispy, we have to go to you first. You are our resident Gears professional, if you will. This is music to my ears personally. I have been saying for quite some time that I want to see I want to see these talented developers, basically the masters of the Unreal Engine, do something different. What are your opinions on this incredible story?
Yeah, so it's pretty crazy, that this came out recently. The Coalition has really kind of it it hit hard for them that, you know, a lot of people don't see Gears 5 as like, you know, the greatest title.
And it quite frankly, it is.
I mean, the only thing I always griped about is the open world part, and I think they're going to kind of ex-nay that. The big thing for them right now is Halo Infinite. Personally, you know, 200 plus devs, I'm pretty sure in some way, shape, or form, they're split into 4 teams, not 3, 4. One is a support team. Okay, that kind of is gonna go around and help any games that are gonna be running on Unreal Engine 5.
Yep.
You also have a team that's going to be working on Gear 6. I think Gear 6 is a lot farther out than a lot of people realize. Then you have the team, the question mark team. So Star Wars IP, quite possible. Now, you know, they did have a team making a RTS game that was pretty successful.
Yep.
When have we seen a Star Wars RTS game?
Yeah, you never know.
So that would be a new IP. It could also be.
I don't want it.
Well, okay, but it could also be. Think about the Mandalorian. Think about the way, you know.
I want that.
Think about the way that individual presents himself. It would present very well in a third person Gears style game. Now, not necessarily the same thing, but using some of the systems they already have in place, it would make total sense. And then there's the other team, which I believe to be working on either a Gears 2 remaster or the Phoenix Collection. This is pretty easy to look at because they have not given any of these games a Series X or S update.
Yeah.
They have basically just used the power of the system. And trust me, even going back and playing Gears 3 recently on Community Game Night, the game could use a nice fresh coat of paint. And it's one of those things that, especially Gears 2 and Gears 1 or Gears 3, somebody likes one over the other. But for the most part, most people still think Gears 2 as the greatest one in the franchise. And at the least, I want a remaster of that. And the only other thing that I could see for that reason is that there are 8 maps, 8 iconic maps, especially maps like Day One and Jacinto and Hale, and there's a lot of maps on there that they really haven't touched in this new generation. So I'm looking for them to really revamp that game. And, you know, I think because of the size of the coalition, they are really able to kind of place people where they need to. Now, that's not to say that it's actually 5 teams, because they're still kind of throwing content into Gears 5, but trust me, it's not what it was. Like, I don't even think we're going to see any new maps. I think they're done with it for the most part. So you have 4 teams. It's split up whatever way. Now, if you split them just straightforward, that's 50 people each. That's a lot. Okay. So they are fully capable of doing a lot of things. And I also think that as time goes on, you're going to see them kind of touching a lot of Unreal properties, and really, you know, they're trying to make these games really AAA quality with the huge visuals, everything else. I mean, you even look at this DLC that Boom's playing right now. This DLC, it's
just incredible, dude.
You know what I mean? And the visuals and, you know, the way it plays out and the way they did this, you know, this is what they're great at. And I think this was more to like prove like, hey, we're still here. You know what I mean? We still got this. So, you know, and it goes back to Rod. You brought Rod back in. He really taught some of these newer devs, and there was a lot of, you know, Epic Games that, you know, made Gears that went to the coalition and followed Rod, and they stayed. A lot of them stayed. Rod left for whatever reason. He left, and I said that they were going to be more ambitious. They were going to kind of bring a new feel, a new spin to the game, and you know, they really did. Even with just this DLC, it felt, you know, the same, but had elements that you just didn't experience in the Gears, but also didn't play with the formula too much, like that open world part. You know what I mean? It kept itself grounded and also, you know, felt innovative at the same time. And, you know, graphically, you could say what you want, but Gears 5 is one of the best looking games out there.
100%. Absolutely.
You know, and that's one thing, like they haven't even utilized the full potential of Unreal 5 yet. And the beauty of it is Epic is really making it much easier to bring code and everything else over to Unreal 5. They said it themselves. So I feel like because of the relationship that Gears has with Unreal itself, that they're going to get stuff before everybody else. And I feel like they're going to maximize its potential and bring it to these other devs that have chosen to use that. And right now, even with a different engine, they have brought in the graphical prowess that is the Coalition into Halo Infinite. And that's why I question that article that came out the other day. And I say, when did this guy leave? Because nobody can tell me. If anybody in the chat knows, I would love to know, because it's still saying that he's working with 343. So I don't know
who are you talking about for
it's Jim something Lin. He came out and said a bunch of stuff, and it was all over Twitter, and it's saying that they're not trying to make an Epic game or anything like that. Like, you
talking about Halo Infinite?
Yeah. So
yeah,
and if he left before they brought in all this help, then I question his morality on that situation, because if you bring in another 100 to 200 people, we don't know how many people, because you just hear about the Coalition, but I'm sure they have all these other devs that are involved in this right now. You know what I mean? So if he left before this, then I don't know, because if you bring enough people on, you could do a whole lot in a year. I'm just saying. So, you know what I mean? I temper my expectations of seeing anything this year from the Coalition, but it's quite possible. And I think it would start with taking, you take a known IP like Gears 2, Gears 3, and you really, you put the nice shiny coat of paint on with Unreal 5 and release it, sometime next year, and maybe have an announcement this year. I think that would be a good start to really, establish them once again as the masters of the new Unreal Engine 5.
No, I mean, listen, no one can argue that they really do know their craft when you start talking about the Coalition and the Unreal Engine. And I am very excited to see what they do with the Unreal Engine 5. I mean, listen, folks, you have to understand something. If you're watching the screen, if you're actually watching the podcast, you're hearing us talk, and you're seeing this DLC in the background, mind you, this is recorded at 1080p, right? And it looks stunningly good, because that's obviously the only way you can record, or at least I mean, on my Elgato, I get it. I don't get 4K, which is fine, because that I don't have a beast of a computer. But this game in itself looks already outstanding. And I said this before, and I think, Crispy, you agree with me. Not only is this the best DLC in years, it's the best looking DLC from anyone. And like I said, if you want to challenge me on that, that's fine. We can have a conversation. But this is another stake in the ground that the Coalition is one of their best studios. And if you missed out on this DLC, and if you're not, the only way you miss out on this DLC is if you're not a fan of Gears. And if you're not a fan of Gears, listen, I'm not going to say that you're wrong. You're just not a fan. Okay, not a problem. But Slow-Mo, let's get your opinion on this, brother. Are you, when you hear that the Coalition, now this is they've been, again, very long in the tooth when talking about working on Gears. They are so important to Microsoft that they're working on one of Microsoft's, has been brought in to help 343 Industries with Halo Infinite. Now, we don't know what that is. We don't know if that is with touching up everything, making games like this look so freaking good. Maybe that's what they're there for. We don't know until Microsoft will tell us. But when you tell me, at least for me, that a Star Wars IP, an exclusive Star Wars IP, could in fact be coming to the Xbox brand by this developer, I'm super stoked. But I want to get your opinion on what Jeffrey Grubb had to say.
I really hope it's true. I really want to see the Coalition do something different.
Yeah, yes, you and me both.
And I've said it before. I really like seeing. I call it the game developer level up, where a game developer may prove their expertise in a certain kind of game they make, but then can actually switch it up and do something different. We saw it with Respawn Entertainment.
Yes.
Primarily a first-person shooter studio with Titanfall. All those devs came from the original Infinity Ward that was doing Modern Warfare. So they knew they were experts at first-person shooters, but then they do Jedi Fallen Order,
which was a masterpiece in itself.
Right. We see it a little bit with Housemarque, getting a little bit out of their wheelhouse from doing twin stick shooters to, although some elements of those kind of shooters still in Returnal, but a third person perspective game. And so when you see a developer actually prove that they can be more than just this kind of studio making this kind of genre, this kind of game, it really shows that they've leveled up. They are in a different class, separate than from most studios. We're going to see, that with Playground Games soon. People won't be able to call Playground just a
racer.
They just make great racers. Like you're gonna be able to see, them in a different light with Fable, and I would love to see that with the coalition. And honestly, if just allow, we see it now with Disney properties where Sony has Spider-Man, and it seems like Xbox didn't really have any Disney properties. Now that they're not getting Star Wars exclusively, of course, but getting these licenses, and Machine Games having Indiana Jones kind of provides a little bit of a variety to the Xbox platform, and it separates it a little bit from where you see their competition doing. So yeah, I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see what they have in store. I almost don't want the Mandalorian to be it, just because if it's the Mandalorian, I feel like it would end up somehow. I just got this feeling like it'll be more like Gears, and I really want them to just I don't want this. Although I really enjoy Gears and High Busters is awesome, I don't want this to be like.
You don't want a Star Wars skin on Gears.
Exactly. Right. I don't want, Star Wars skin over Gears gameplay. I want something completely different from them, and let them really spread their wings and see what they can do,
Well, to that point, Slow-Mo, I'm glad you actually bring that up, because one of the advantages I think that we have, we're witnessing with Microsoft specifically in Xbox Game Studios is before they heavily depended on these games coming out from these developers. Now with 23 studios and 35 plus teams making games, they can do exactly what you said: stretch their wings out, take their time making the game that they want to make, and prove to the world that they're more than just a Gears studio. And I honestly, like you, cannot wait to see that, because obviously you say something else you touched on that was important. Sony has Spider-Man on lock. And that's good on Sony. I mean, obviously that probably comes with the deal that they already have in place with Disney and the use of the Spider-Man character. We just saw them make all those deals with bringing all of the Spider-Man films, future films, and potential series to Disney Plus. So of course they're gonna maintain that exclusivity with the Spider-Man character by Insomniac, because they're working hard on the part 2. But to see the coalition tackle a Star Wars game, my God, dude, that I am very hyped for that. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I'm a huge Gears fan, but more importantly, I'm a huge Coalition fan. And I have been booed on my own show. People telling me, well, they just make Gears and you should just like it. No, I want them to do more. And apparently they have heard the cries of many others. Why, you see that body part just fall onto the cliff over there. Let's get Game Pass Dad in on the conversation. Listen, Star Wars just celebrated May the 4th be with you. Unfortunately, at least for me, it was very disappointing. We didn't get any big announcements. I was hoping for an Indiana Jones-esque announcement where they showed, painting over a lightsaber, a lightsaber crystal or something with that to do with the dark side, and say, yeah, new game coming from the coalition, whatever. That didn't happen. But Jeff Grubb, again, someone that not only did I get a chance to work with on my last podcast, he has been in the circles of being considered to be very trustworthy in his information for you, knowing that Gears, well, the studio that makes Gears, is going to potentially bring us a Star Wars exclusive. What are your thoughts on that, dude?
Definitely, it excites me. I'm always happy to see these fantastic studios like expand their wings, because first and foremost, these studios do not get pigeonholed because they only want to make one game. I don't think anyone goes to work for these studios because they aspire just to make a third person gory shooter. Like there's a lot of people in those studios that want to make more than just one thing. So hearing that they might be doing something with Star Wars is another level of exciting, just because of those partnerships that we're seeing, from the power that Microsoft does have, like monetarily and as an influence there. That's great to see. I really feel like it's probably going to be a Mandalorian game, because maybe it will kind of be in the same vein of Gears of War, but who knows what it could be. There's a lot of stories in that universe to tell. I would really love to see another um, RPG level Jedi game, because we haven't really had like a single player experience like that since KOTOR, and that was one of my favorite games of all time. But whenever I do see this, I feel like that's kind of what is opening up with the way Microsoft is changing the industry with Game Pass. Is not only do you get amazing DLC included with like Game Pass Ultimate, you also start to see companies getting more leeway to not have to be money printing machines. They just have to make content for the service. So it doesn't all
Yes.
have to be 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 games, or else we have to start shuttering studios. Like, especially with Microsoft having the monetary backing to be able to give them the opportunities, just having Game Pass helps that business model, just helps make this happen. So I'm excited when Playground is making Fable. Like, that's going to be, I have high hopes for it, and I don't feel like any of it's necessarily overhyped. But at the same time, if it's not a perfect game, they're not going to be dissuaded from doing it again or improving upon it. Whereas if it's EA or Activision or Ubisoft or 2K, like EA is notorious for shutting down studios, and Activision just laid off a bunch of developers. So um, it's showing that basically making AAA blockbuster games um, isn't just about, it's not just about that anymore. It's more about having that service level. So I really want to see more of the innovation, like not just these big games necessarily. I'd like to see a lot more of the stuff that's like grounded, where it was like, oh, this is just something one person was working on, but it's a super interesting idea. Let's put all the, like, how much did they get for that? They got like a couple $1 million put behind it to bring it to the forefront and put it in front of the whole of Game Pass at that time. Like, let's see more of those small projects even um, get blown up into major releases into Game Pass. I feel like that those are really the opportunities I'm excited for. But um, definitely all the above of what's been hinted at so far is very interesting and exciting to me.
Yeah, and you and I both. Now, I saved Joe for the last part of the last man standing on this particular topic, because Joe, you're one of
Yeah.
our biggest Star Wars fans. Like
Uh-huh.
you have an I mean, a TIE fighter hanging from the ceiling
Yeah.
behind you.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that we've seen with Sony
Yeah.
specifically
Yeah.
is they took the Killzone developers who
Yeah.
only made Killzone and
Yeah.
allow them the time, money, and the effort and the support to bring us Horizon Zero Dawn. Now, I know I'm gonna get challenged on this. A lot of people don't like the game. That's fine. That's your opinion. I happen to love it. I think
Yeah.
Aloy is an amazing, strong woman lead character. I love
Mhm.
her story. I love how we saw her as a kid. I love everything about the game. I cannot wait for Horizon Forbidden West. I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping we get that at the end of 2021. But
Who
now we're
knows?
hearing, yeah. Well, again, we'll see. Hopefully, at E3 we get some sort of a confirmation from Sony. But yeah, okay, so now you, like many others, have said that you yourself want to see the coalition do something different, and now we think that they are. And I think it's more than just think of it. I think it's basically a confirmation that not only are they helping on Halo Infinite, not only are they continuing work on Gear 6, they're potentially bringing us a Star Wars original IP that, of course, is going to be an exclusive for Xbox. What are your thoughts on this, and how excited are you to see this transpire?
Oh man, first off, I'm really excited. So, yeah, May the 4th. I want to hit there. It was a little bit of a dud this year.
It sucked,
I mean,
dude. They disappointed. Sorry.
We
Sorry,
did get a retractable lightsaber, but it looks thick as hell. But it's still cool. That's still cool. And Bad Batch is legitimately great. So, I'll take the win. I'll still take the W. I don't care. And as someone who has over a dozen 1-to-1 movie accurate lightsabers, I feel like I'm the authority on this. So, real talk, I love The Mandalorian. It is seriously so freaking good. It's
some of the best Star Wars content in almost a decade. Let's call a spade a spade.
Honest to goodness, it's some of the best. Yeah, it's just some of the best Star Wars. Because I believe Dave Filoni understands Star Wars, I think, better than George Lucas.
Well, him and Jon Favreau basically saved Star Wars. I will dare say that.
Chef's kiss. Yeah, so great. That's what happens when you don't have a bunch of suits, buy something and then immediately go, make it. But we need a game plan. Just do it. Yeah. When you have a plan, it usually works out. Anyway, that's it. This gets me so jazzed, man, because yes, I love the coalition. I think they've done for Gears what we want 343 to do with Halo, right? Like, let's be real, 343, at least for me, has not gotten a Halo experience where I'm just like, oh my god, they got it right. It's kind of like, they're the stepdad of it, trying to understand the kid, but the kid doesn't like him that much because it's not his real pop. So like that's the feels I get when it comes to 343, man. But I don't feel that same way with Coalition. And I think the reason is because they understood, and I think Rod infused it with the studio of what Gears should be and what the fundamentals are. That studio is possibly one of my favorites coming out of Microsoft. It is Coalition, I feel, has not made a bad Gears of War game. Or sorry, I did say it right. Gears of War game. They haven't. Like, I loved 4. I liked it a lot. Absolutely love 5. They've done it. They've been a good steward to this IP. So what better way than giving them an IP that also needs a good steward as well? Like, the Star Wars IP is powerful. It literally is just it's your child's imagination gone free, right? It's telling these small stories with these in this huge literal universe. And when I think of Coalition and when I think of the Mandalorian and seeing that little Mando on Phil Spencer's shelf, definitely means something. It definitely means that we can. This is past the hypotenuse stage. You know what I mean? This is more than a germ. This is something that is real. This is something that they have. So I definitely think it's a Mandalorian game. I definitely think it's going to be. I would love it. Y'all go like, oh, I don't want this to be a Mando or Gears game with the Mando skin, dude. If that's what this game needs, how like the Mando shooting, like the Mando fight scenes, they're very close, frame wise. They're very, not to say visceral, but intimate. I think
intimate.
would
Yeah,
be,
intimate's a good way to do it because they are up close and personal.
Yeah.
100%.
So I think that does well with what they would want to do. Also, the thing that Mando gets so right with what Dave Filoni understands what Star Wars is that at the end of the day, Star Wars is either a spaghetti western or it's a Kurosawa film in space. And when you had the standoff in episode 4, I believe, with him and the other bounty hunter, right? Like it was like this tense thing that lasted like minutes, right? This staring contest. What better way? And again, I just like to marry things and make them kiss. Of just like take a Gears of War game, take the Gears studio and then take people that understand what Kurosawa's vision is in a spaghetti western, and then go, okay, this is what Star Wars is. Let's make, gang, buckle down. I had no coffee. Let's get weird. All right, let's just get weird. Let's take off our pants while we're at it. What if we had a Ghost of Tsushima mixed with Star Wars and Gears of War?
Dude, I will sign that up right now. Dude,
Yeah.
Joe, you have to elaborate on that point because it's genius.
Please. You know, right? You got freaking hyped. I got freaking hyped. Let's go. You are a lone Mandalorian. You are just a simple man making his way through the galaxy. You are just going from hit to hit, going from job to job. Something happens where that ultimately shifts.
So you're saying an entirely new Mandalorian story?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
a totally new, different Mando, different tribe, or maybe same tribe, who knows? But you're making your way through the galaxy, and whether you're fighting Imperials or Jedi or whatever the case may be, you're kind of getting to carve your own path as that Mando. And yeah, having the cover-based shooting that we know of Gears.
No,
right? When you're having those, when you're having those fire.
No.
I mean,
Coming from the Mass Effect fan. Oh yeah,
it is a skin of Gears.
No.
That's what you're describing.
Trust me. Trust me, it's great. Trust me. Just hang on with me here. Hang on with me here. But with
okay, go ahead, Babbitt.
Have you seen
with more of a level design of that of like an Uncharted, where there is more platforming focus, where there is more like you using your jetpack, like it's more Gears is rather it's not one plane. This one's more vertical. And then like getting to the final boss, and it is like that Kurosawa-esque like standoff moment with you and that other Mando or other like that job. You know what I mean? And having like that 1-to-1 like gunfight or fist fight or whatever have you, putting them in carbonite, like awesome. That to me is cool as shit. And yes, it takes some elements from Gears, but when I'm thinking of a Mando game, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about shootouts, man. I'm thinking about the last episode of Mando, him coming out of the cantina and just brawling people, just shooting them in the mouth and all that stuff. Like I'm thinking of that moment. I'm thinking of the one with Bill Burr. What was that? Episode 5.
Oh, dude, that was
last season.
Fantastic,
right?
Dude.
Yeah, where you had the standoff and like they're looking at each other and the plan didn't go awry and you see the officer doesn't care and like Bill Burr's like, F it, and just shoots him. Like that's what like it's the tense moments. It's the tense moments with then the action payoff. That's what Mando is. And at the end of the day, just give me what I want. Don't listen to slow-mo. Listen to me. Do something completely different. I don't want to be a lightsaber wielding guy. We got that, man. I want to be
more Gears. It's a different freak. Come on, don't do it. Don't do it.
No. There's no lights. Like there's no chainsaws in this one, right?
That's fine. I mean, all right. So no chainsaws, but it's still the same. It's still the same cover shooting.
You can have it. Listen, you can have a cover shooter that doesn't. It's not 1-to-1 to Gears. You know what I mean? Like you can have a cover shooter that is more like
but think about it. If they did more like where the gameplay is found, they found it around cover shooting, and you're the coalition. you know it's going to be like they're going to use a lot of Gears assets for that.
Okay,
It'll make the development simpler.
Slow-mo, listen now. It'd be really cool.
I will say this, that you know, the thought process is that, you know, being a Mandalorian character, I think you have to have a different aspect than what we've seen from Star Wars games. And you know, I think, you know, the Coalition, like I said, they would probably use assets, but I mean, if you played Gears 5, there are a lot of elements to it, especially with the knifing and everything else that you can do is a lot different than what I was used to. And trust me, it took some time. I had many deaths. People were spamming the hell out of that, but the animations and everything were really good. And I'm like, well, you know, you combine a lot of these things and it starts, you know, once you figure it out, it really starts to be something much different than what you're used to. But I feel like because they have all these assets with the cover base, with the movement in Gears is bar none, probably the most ridiculous. And, you know, what better way to be like a loner and have like a godlike movement in some way, shape, or form, you know, than having a Gears movement system in some way, shape, or form. Not saying it's going to be Gears, but because of how good you feel when you move in the world, I think would lend itself very well to a game like that.
I agree. Listen, yes,
Crispy, boom.
Yes,
you guys are contributing.
Yes,
to this, and it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. I am standing on my square. I want a completely different game. I want. How about Force Unleashed? How about like the Coalition give us like a more advanced combat style, but gameplay style like the Force Unleashed games, where you got a Jedi and he's like using his abilities and it's more melee based. Give me something different, Coalition.
But it wouldn't be a more Mandalorian game. That's the problem.
It doesn't have to be a Mandalorian game either.
You just described Fallen Order.
Yeah.
You know?
I just want to make another Force.
Have fun with us. It's fun here. Look at us. We got our lightsabers. It's whoop whoop whoop. Mine's
maybe they can do Fallen Order better than Respawn did. You never know.
Well, you know, I mean, listen, it's funny because we don't even know. Remember, the Division developers are making their own Star Wars as well. Massive Entertainment. So that's also big. Look, listen. Here's the thing,
and I don't think that game is going to play like the Division. I don't think.
I mean, a lot of people. I mean, I can't suggest it. We have no idea. We haven't seen anything. Look, I'm going to say this. I think I have to agree with Mr. Badbit here. If you take some elements, not entirely all the elements. I mean, if you are going to be playing a Mando on a new story, a new character that's being made specifically by the Coalition, and you are a Mandalorian, you're going to have to take cover. You can't just stand out there and get blasted. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have to. Is it going to be cover based? I don't know, but there definitely should be something for cover.
Honestly, what I'm thinking is it's not like a Gears per se. I'm thinking more of like in the Uncharted vein. When I'm thinking third person from them. That's what I'm kind of thinking. I know it's crazy, but it would be cool.
The Mandalorian armor, though, also is probably the closest thing that Star Wars has to like a Master Chief. So maybe it could be more of an action-oriented,
thank
cover
you,
systems type game,
or a first-person shooter.
Right.
Oh no!
I think.
Why not? Why not?
Because I don't know. I mean, we again. That's true. We haven't really had a lot of first-person shooters for Star Wars.
Honestly, so like I'm thinking of Republic Commando, and I love Republic Commando.
You platinumed it for crying out loud.
I platinumed it as well. But the thing with blasters in the Star Wars universe, this is why it's hard to do like a game first person in Star Wars, is because there's no movement to those guns, right? So like there's no slide, there's no release, you know what I mean? Like you don't cock back a blaster, it's just there. So there's not a lot of moving things. So it's always going to look, if when you're in that position, it's always going to look clunky to modern animation. And then coupled with the fact that blasters don't reload. No one's got that right.
Right. So why do we need to do the Gears cover shooting aspect of it at all? Half of it you're not even using, but the whole hit the button again to get the reload.
It's
It's
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
You know what's cooler? Force Unleashed is cooler.
Fallen Order's great. We got it. It's awesome. We don't need another Jedi, dude. We got it. Dude, think about it, man. You're Mando. You got your jetpack. You know? You're flying. You got baby Grogu right there.
You
Balling,
got your jetpack.
you know?
That makes it more vertical. Hey, look, I know a lot of people don't like Andromeda, but Mass Effect Andromeda's combat was the best combat in any Mass Effect game.
The combat was good. It was good. I'm not
more like that. You know, there was some cover in there. What? There was some cover in there, but they had verticality in the combat. They have verticality in the combat where you could go higher and then slam down on enemies. You could see a Mandalorian doing that.
I could, yeah. I mean, listen. At
Say
this
anything
point,
but the Gears gameplay. Is what I'm saying.
Well, you know what? I'll say this. I'm happy to know. I'm actually thrilled to know that. And we've heard people say that Microsoft doesn't allow them to do what they want. That's so further from the truth. I can't even begin to tell you. Phil has openly spoken about how he wants teams to make what they want. That's not even a suggestion. That's fact, right? So I'm gonna say this. I'm very excited to know more information. We will get hopefully soon enough. I don't know if we're gonna get an announcement at E3. It would be one of those really cool announcements if they show, they play the Star Wars music and then the Gears. I mean, well, not the Gears, but the Coalition logo pops up, and that they're working on a Star Wars game, and they just give you a teaser trailer. I would be through the roof excited. But folks, this has been a fantastic 2 hours. We're closing in on a 2 hour mark. I have to catch up on some of the super chats that have come in. We have two from Selbor Robles drops a very generous 2 super chats for $5 each. The first one says this: they can't change everything and take forever to make the game. The reason they are making it is because similarities between Gears and Star Wars games. Yeah, I mean, maybe there's some truth to that, but I think that they just are an extremely talented team that deserves their shot at a Star Wars game. And now that we know that EA is no longer the benefactors of that license, thanks to their f-ups, we now, there's going to be Star Wars coming from a multitude of very good developers. And I'm happy to know that the Gears guys and gals over at that studio are going to get a shot to tell a new exciting Star Wars story. His second super chat says, Cyberpunk is all different, and they haven't been able to fix it. Halo Infinite having to be a delay. Last of Us 2 used some of the staff, but better. I mean, listen, at this point, again, I want to keep reiterating this point. Microsoft is in a position that they have never been before. And what am I talking about? I'm saying that because they have so many teams, because they have so many development houses, a part of Xbox Game Studio, they don't have to rush through these games. We know what's coming out in the next 2 to 3 years, right? We know Avowed is coming, right? We know Halo Infinite is coming. We know that 2 new Forzas are coming. We know a bunch of other games. Fable will be here, hopefully at the end of 2022, potentially the early 2023. We know Perfect Dark may see a release in holiday of next year, or potentially, swap places with Fable. So we know what they're doing relatively soon. Plus, of course, they pulled us, and I keep saying this, a page right out of Sony's book. Because they don't have the first parties right now, today, that we're talking about, they are heavily investing in getting second party and third party exclusives specifically onto Xbox Game Pass. Like I said, if you're an Xbox fan, there's a lot to get excited about now and in the future. But folks, this has been a fantastic show. We had over 400 people here, which is awesome to have that many people tune in for this small program. Pixel Bit G, who's a good friend of the show, he drops An outstanding $2 super chat says, Mandos use swords, guns, rockets, and jetpacks. Oh my. Yes. Well, I added the oh my. And yes, I think that we can have an amazing game. But let's get to the outros. I'm going to start with our guest. Slow-mo, listen, brother. I tell you this all the time, and I mean it from my heart. I consider you to be an extension of my family. And I got to tell you, you're one of my favorite community members for a lot of reasons. One of which is how you, as a man, handle yourself on the interwebs. You are a gentleman, and of course you will put that backslap logo to good use on several people that deserve it. But more importantly, as a content creator, what you've been up to on your channel is spectacular, and what you do with our brother on DPS, of course I'm talking about Gaming Forte, is a show that I think everyone needs to tune into. Tell everyone about that show, and where can people reach out to you on social media?
Oh, absolutely, Boom. Thanks again for the invite. It's always a good time on Breakfast with Boom. Great panel and great chat as usual. You can check me on my YouTube channel, Slow Mo Backslap, as well as Twitter of the same name. Check out last night's DPS podcast on Gaming Forte's channel, where Forte admits that he takes credit for his daughter beating games. Can you believe that? I mean, good grief. And he was flubbing words all night. I couldn't tell what he was talking about. It was hilarious. So go check that out.
Maybe he had a long shift. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he was just, the GameStop demons beat him down last night.
But Forte flubs words all the time. If it's a long shift issue, it's become permanent. And I don't know what's going on.
He's been working overtime too much. What you're saying?
Yeah. I'm trying to take credit for his daughter though. Inexcusable. Of course, I didn't let him get away with that. But anyway,
of course you didn't. Well, this is your revenge for him making you play Bug Snacks for 19 hours.
Oh, exactly right. I actually don't even think that's good enough. I need to get him back for something else too to make up for that. But anyway, check us out on DPS Podcast next week. We're going to have a special guest coming through. Can't say who it is quite yet, but it's going to be somebody who's pretty big in the industry. So come check us out on my channel, 9 p.m. Thursday night. And hey, you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy your games.
Well, thank you so much, brother. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be shutting this podcast down and running right back to Resident Evil, which is waiting in the wings. But I want to introduce our next special guest, Game Pass Dad. I hope you had a great time. It was great to have you a part of the show. I want you to do me a favor and tell people what you got going on and where can people reach out to you and strike up a conversation on social media.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you so much for having me. This is a great experience. I definitely want to work on creating more content focused on Xbox, because that is where my passion lies, and it's been a great journey, combining my experience as a stand-up comedian for 10 years and my love of gaming is really what this project has been about. I've always wanted to do something with that, and it's been awesome ever since I started back in August with like the Twitter and also live streaming to Twitch. You can find me on all social media underneath Game Pass Dad, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Mainly I'm focusing on Twitch right now. You can see me live Wednesdays and weekends. It's kind of more of a variety stream, somewhat comedy focused, and I'm trying to find a way to bring the Xbox back into that. But primarily, I'm bringing more focus back to my YouTube channel, where I know you have a show Monday night. So if anyone's watching this, you can always check me out afterwards, or watch the videos that I post of my podcast every Monday, which is an Xbox focused podcast. And there's going to be more content on my YouTube channel as well. But yeah, Saturday night, we're actually celebrating some milestones in the community, and my community on Twitch decided that I needed a mullet. So we're having a marathon stream, a celebration. Saturday night.
Nice.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Business up front, party in the back stream. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That's
around
great.
6 p.m. Eastern time, we're gonna get that started, and we're gonna be going all night because I'm finding some rare time to be able to have a marathon there. But yeah, come hang out, come say hello. Feel free to reach out to me. You can send me an email, gamepassstat@gmail.com. Whatever you want to do, you guys are welcome to come interact with me. Probably find me most active on Twitter, where I post my memes and give some friendly razzing towards the PlayStation Sony side. But honestly, finding myself being a more of a PC gamer these days, just with what I've done. So I really appreciate being here, and I appreciate everyone that gives me the time of day to share my opinions and even talks back against him. It's all fun, and I appreciate y'all.
Well, thank you much for being here, brother. Definitely enjoyed your having you on today's show, and they're definitely going to get you back in the future.
Yeah,
Crispy Bomb, why don't you tell us what you got going on? Obviously, I know you're going to be doing your Gears of War dance, knowing that we're getting a Star Wars game from this team. Tell everyone about where they could reach out to you on social media and what other shows you are a part of.
Oh, shout out to the chat. And of course, you guys, awesome conversation. And it was just fun to just speculate, but we all just need to see. And I think it starts with Halo Infinite. How's that going to work?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But at Crispy Bomb on Twitter, Crispy Bomb 28, Xbox Live. You can find me on Retro Renegades Tuesday nights, 7 p.m. The next podcast, 8 p.m. Thursdays, prime time. And we got, yes, of course, back here, Breakfast with Boom, Friday, 10 a.m.
Well, thanks for being here, brother. Definitely appreciate the opinion. And of course, you brought it 100 as always. And last and no way least, Joe, again, I want people to gravitate towards your PlayStation podcast because I think it's the best in the business. And I would even dare say that it gives Craig Motherflippin' Miller a run for his money. Tell everyone where they can check out the trophy room with you and your best friend, Kyle. And where can people reach out to you on social media?
Oh man, you can find me over at Mr. Badbit. You can find the show at PS Trophy. Also, by the way, gang, I'm having this fight with Luke Lore, as always. I say PS Trophy Room sounds better than Trophy Room PS. Right?
100%. 100%.
Right. It sounds better. If you get PS up there, you know it's PlayStation. If it's like Trophy Room PS, you're like, oh, no. It's like, come on, Luke. You know, I know a thing about a branding. Anyway, this week's episode's pretty special. It's one that we've been working on for the past almost 5 months now to get him on. We got Greg Miller on the show.
That's big deal. Big deal.
Kind of funny. And let me tell you something. When he got on, because he's just like, there was complications on his end. He's like, we do not have a lot of time. So it was a like trial by fire. It was like, Joe had to usually I'd like to sit down, especially if it's someone like I very much look up to and I need to settle my nerves. I like to sit down for 5-10 minutes and kind of like realize they're people, and then we can start the show. We had no time to realize Greg Miller was people. So as a huge fan of his content, it was so funny because I was just like, all right, Greg, so have you ever heard of the show called Beyond? I'm like, same vein as that. Classic Beyond. Okay, you like that? All right, cool. Let's go. Let's do this.
That's great.
And we started the show like that. He's like, yeah, I think I know. Yeah, the Jonathan Dornbush, he's a pretty good guy. I'm like, yeah, pretty much like that. All right, let's do this. So, yeah, you can find that show. We got Greg Miller on. We talk about the future of PlayStation. We talk about the Apple v. Google Doc leak thing, courtroom case, all that stuff and more. Honestly, I was so nervous the first 5 minutes. You definitely see it. Like, I talk a mile a minute, but eventually get my stuff together. So go over there, check that out. It was really that was a moment. That was a moment for sure. So yeah, check out the Trophy Room on YouTube, on wherever you find a podcast service of choice, or on the pin tweet at Mr. Badbit. That's
nice.
It. That's all I got.
Well, dude, it was great to have you back on the show. Love what you did with Greg. Can't wait to see what else you got going on with the trophy room. And
yeah, there's more. Like, there's more stuff happening this month. Like, you thought like that was it? Like, nope. So it's gonna be nuts here, man.
Well, listen, we look forward to it, Joe. And of course, I want to thank everybody that dropped a super chat into the chat today. The continued support is incredible. And I honestly say this all the time, and I truly mean it from my heart, is that I expect nothing. And it's always humbling that people take money out of their wallets to support my dream. And I hope that I'm providing the class act entertainment that you would expect. And I do it with, of course, a lot of love and care, which is why so much work goes into these topics. Hopefully you enjoyed today's show. Do enough to not only subscribe if you're new, but hit the like button and help us beat down the algorithm known as YouTube. But of course, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to close out today's show with something that's important to me. Hopefully, one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dear old dad taught us when we were kids. And he used to say this: son, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, and I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. We'll see you next week on the newest episode of Breakfast with Boom.